Attention CCH, this is your sideline reporter Caleb Cruz. The time is now 7:39, Monday, April 19th. I guess it's right there, but that's okay. Just gotta say it anyway. It's Tuesday now, if you guys are seeing this, if I'm still human, if most of us are human, I don't know how we've done it. People are dropping like flies, it's ridiculous, okay? Make sure you guys are checking in, getting all that good stuff. Tomorrow, Wednesday, it's gonna be a great time. We got freshman girls group, freshman guys group. Make sure you guys are getting out to that. Hot dogs from 10 to 11 in between Bach and Faywick. That'll be a great time. Get some dogs, and we got those 10-minute grace periods, so you guys should be able to get there safe and sound, okay? Then, on Friday, if you guys have made it that far, well done, and you still got to get that extraction. Then, Friday night pancakes, okay? From
11 p.m.
to 1 a.m.-ish, okay? That is our last pancakes for the year, according to Andrew Boffman. If it's not, you can blame him. But those are our announcements for the week. We're really, really running short with all this HVZ stuff going around. Make sure you guys are staying safe and being smart, but also make sure we're having fun, okay? I'm having so much fun because I left campus early, and I'm actually in my closet in my house right now, but that's whatever. Doesn't really matter. To all you zombies out there, you're dumb.
All right, how are our humans doing? Yeah, how are the zombies doing? Definitely a little lighter. You guys having fun? Cool. There we go. I think Caleb Cruz now has a big bullseye on his back. Hey, welcome to Tuesday Night Worship. Glad that you're here. Got a great evening in store tonight. Want to remind you to pull out your app if you are new and have not been here before. CCH Trine, if you want to download that app, on there is a Get Connected. And we want to get connected with you. We want you to sign in tonight that you're here. You get Ignite points and search points for that, but also you're a way to just stay connected and what's going on and staying in the loop with CCH. So we're excited about that. We have a little special presentation this evening that we wanted to open up with and wanted to invite Irene and Lydia and Kaylee to join me up front here. And we have an award that we give out every year at our banquet. And unfortunately, we weren't able to gather together for our banquet. But it's called our Distinguished Faculty Award. And our senior class nominates a faculty member to be honored. And looking for someone that exemplifies a high level of integrity and is just committed to the well-being of students. And these three students, I've asked to just share a little bit about the Distinguished Faculty nominee award winner that is here this evening. We're going to present this, but we want you to hear their perspective and why they nominated this professor.
Professor Snyder always makes his students work really hard, and so he just continues to encourage us to work hard, and anybody who's taken a Snyder test will know what I'm talking about.
I had the privilege to have Professor Snyder every day for a whole year because I took 4 classes with him. And he truly cares about his students and makes sure that they're doing good inside and outside of the classroom. And he just has a lot of real world experience that he offers to his students, and he's pretty funny too.
And outside of the classroom, Professor Snyder, or Uncle Carter, goes above and beyond just to care for us and is just somebody that's always got our back and will do anything he can to help us out.
Yeah. Would you please come on up here, Professor Snyder? Put your hands together for Professor Snyder, the CCH Distinguished Faculty Award winner. Would you hand this to him? You guys can give him his award and give him a hug, shake hands. He has such a relationship with his students and seen by by these, so thank you so much, Professor Snyder, for just what you do for Trine and for all of the students. So another round of applause for Professor Snyder. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, we want to transition into a time of worship together. So will everyone please stand? And let's take a second to quiet ourselves, quiet our hearts. This has been quite the week already, and it's only Tuesday. For anyone playing Humans vs. Zombies, they can attest to that, that it's been kind of stressful for you guys, right? And even if you're not playing, we've got 2 weeks left in the semester. So that always means a lot of stress is coming. And so let's take a second to quiet ourselves. Let's leave that stress at the door. Let's open our hearts tonight that the Lord can enter and work powerfully and miraculously in our hearts tonight. God, you are so, so good. You are so, so good, and you are working miraculously tonight. We open our hearts and our minds to you. We welcome you here into the space. Whether it's the first time we've heard your name or the millionth time, we welcome you here, and we know that your name has power. Lord, we claim our identity tonight, that we are your beloved children, and that you will never abandon us. Come, Holy Spirit. Help us to worship you freely tonight.
Who am I that the highest king would welcome me? I was lost, but he brought me in. Oh, his love for me. Oh, his love for me. Who the Son sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. Free at last, he is ransomed. His grace runs deep. While I was a slave to sin, Jesus died for me. Yes, he died for me. Who the Son sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you
the splendor of the King, clothed in majesty. Let all the earth rejoice, all the earth rejoice. He wraps himself in light, and darkness tries to hide, and trembles at his voice, trembles at his voice. How great is our God? Sing with me, how great is our God, and all will see how great is our God. And age to age he stands, and time is in his hands, beginning and the end, beginning and the end. The Godhead three in one, Father, Spirit, Son, the Lion and the Lamb, the Lion and the Lamb. How great is our God? Sing with me, how great is our God, and all will see how great is our God. For the name above all names, you are worthy of all praise, and my heart will sing, how great is our God. Name above all names, worthy of all praise, and my heart will sing, how great is our God. My soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. I've carried a burden for too long on my own. I wasn't created to bear it alone. I hear your invitation to let it all go. I see it now, I'm laying it down, and I know that I need you. I run to the Father, I fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding, no reason to wait. My heart needs a surgeon, my soul needs a friend. So I'll run to the Father again and again and again and again. Oh, oh, oh. You saw my condition, had a plan from the start. Your Son for redemption, the price for my heart. And I don't have a context for that kind of love. I don't understand, I can't comprehend. All I know is I need you. I run to the Father, I fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding, no reason to wait. My heart needs a surgeon, my soul needs a friend. So I'll run to the Father again and again and again and again. Oh, oh, again and again and again and again. Oh, 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 my heart has been in your sight long before my first breath, running into your arms is running to life from death. And I feel this rush deep in my chest. Your mercy is calling out. Just as I am, you pull me in, and I know I need you now. I run to the Father, I fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding, no reason to wait. My heart needs a surgeon, my soul needs a friend. So I'll run to the Father again and again. I run to the Father, I fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding, no reason to wait. My heart found a surgeon, my soul found a friend. So I'll run to the Father again and again and again and again. Oh, oh, again and again. Oh, again and again.
Can we just stay right there in this moment for just a second and just reflect on what we've just sang for a moment? So with your eyes closed here, I just want to read through that slowly and for us to just kind of soak that in a little bit, take that in. what we just sang. And wherever you find yourself in this, I want you to just kind of latch onto that and sit with it for a moment. I'll run to the Father, fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding. There's no reason to wait. My heart needs a surgeon. My soul needs a friend. So I'll run to the Father again and again and again and again. Let's all just take a deep breath together. And let's go ahead and take a seat. And let's dive into what the Lord has for us together tonight. I want to ask us a question kind of as we get started here. And we'll answer by a show of hands here in just a moment. But in Eugene Peterson's modern paraphrase, The Message of the Bible, this is actually a question that Jesus asks this group of people that's following him. He asks, are you tired? Are you worn out? How many of us feel that way? Are you tired? Are you worn out? And let me just say this before we all get into this. Me too. Me too. The things that we share together tonight are something that I'm still wrestling with, something that I'm still working on, something that God is still working on in me, something that he has to constantly speak into my life. And I don't have all of this figured out. I'm still in process with the rest of you in here tonight. But tonight we're going to talk about rest. Rest. And so I want to go back to this passage from Matthew and read the entire thing, what Jesus says in this moment. Again, from the Message, it says, are you tired, worn out, burned out on religion? Come to me. Get away with me, and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me, and you'll learn to live freely and lightly. And I just want to take tonight a little bit to break this down some for us, and to talk about what this real rest is. And we've established that this is where we are. We asked the question at the beginning, are you tired? Are you worn out? Yes, Jesus is talking to us. We're receiving this in this moment. And in response to all the nodding heads at that moment as well, everyone who's saying yes to these questions, he says, come to me, get away with me, and you'll recover your life. And so the first thing that I see when I look at this passage and I look at what Jesus is saying is that I can't stay where I am and simply find rest. I can't stay where I'm at and find it. I have to move. I have to do something. There's a recognition of a need for true rest, a need for that. And then there's also this determined action to engage it on my part. And I think oftentimes we get caught in this place where our recognition of that only comes when we finally entered a dry season, when we finally gotten to the point where I'm depleted, I'm worn out, I'm burned out, and rest becomes a necessity at that point. And I need this. I'm so tired. But ideally, I think what's supposed to be happening in our lives is that there should be a constant awareness of the importance of rest, and we should be engaging in that regularly, all the time. And so regardless of our current situation, if you weren't somebody that raised your hand and said, yeah, I'm tired, I know a lot of us did, but regardless of where we're at, we need to make an effort to seek real rest on a regular basis. And real rest, as I define this, as I look at what it says in Scripture, real rest is not just doing nothing. A lot of us want that sometimes, that we want to just veg, we want to do nothing, we want to focus on nothing. That's not real rest for us, though. It's not just doing nothing. Real rest is life-giving. It's refreshing. It brings peace. It reminds us of our joy. It refuels our passion. It refuels our energy. our compassion for others. It refuels our wisdom. That's what real rest does. Real rest is not just shutting out the world, but it is engaging God intentionally. And Jesus, in this moment, invites us to this real rest alongside him. Last week together, we sang this new song about the God who is with us. And I think I see so much of that in this passage as well. We sang about the God who's with us through the Father's presence, the God who is with us through Jesus walking on earth, and now through his Spirit, we have a God who embraces being with us. And Jesus draws us into that here for real rest. He says, get away with me. Walk with me. Work with me. Watch how I do it. And he gives us the example. He gives us the example to follow so that we know what we're doing. Because left on our own, it's really tough to figure out sometimes. But Jesus, in his example, he had a regular, intimate relationship with God through spending time with him. He took time to rest. He took time to get away with God, to step away from all the things that he was doing, but also to work with him. And that brought life for Jesus. Getting away with God. We have to spend time with him. That's the next thing I see. We can't truly enter into his rest unless we spend time with the Lord, unless we get to know him on a deeper level. He invites us to come take a walk with him. I love that. I love that language that he says, walk with me. And I think that's super against the grain of our culture. That's against the grain of a lot of things that we've been taught. We like to run, whether that's in the literal sense or not. That's okay. We like to run in this idea that we like to get thing after thing done and be as efficient as possible. We are about speed in Western culture, speed and efficiency. Get the stuff done. We like to run, and Jesus invites us to walk. And I think some really powerful things happen at about 3 miles per hour. If you don't know, that's the average walking speed of human beings. I think a lot of powerful things happen at 3 miles per hour. Let me share a little bit with you. For years, year after year, I've gone on vacation with my family. And so that's with my parents and my brothers. And there's this moment that happens regularly during this week that we spend away together. This moment that I really cherish. And it's never a planned thing on vacation. You know, you go on vacation, you have all these things that are planned out that you want to do or whatever. It's not one of those things. But at some point during the week, and it's always during the evening, because if it's during the middle of the day, it's too hot, and my dad does not go outside when it's hot, let me just tell you. But sometime during the middle of the week, my dad says, "Hey, I'm gonna go take a walk. Do you want to come with me?" And I began to value this so much more as I got older, especially when I got into college. And during this time, whenever he would walk down the beach with me, we would do so many things that were so intentional. We would just process life together. We processed the last year together. He would ask me questions about how life was going, what was happening in my life, what was important to me. He would speak into my life when I would ask him questions, and I would glean wisdom from him. And it's always been one of the most life-giving things during that week away on vacation is this walk with my dad and how much he speaks life into me. It's so cool. And that happens at 3 miles per hour. That happens when we slow down. I believe God works with us the same way. God invites us to slow down, to process with him, to ask him questions, to hear life-giving truths from him as he speaks or as we encounter him through his word. He invites us to ask him to prompt us with questions, to lead us into something new. He invites us to slow down and enter into a genuine relationship. all the way back in Genesis at the beginning, God comes walking through the garden in the cool of the day. And this is recorded after the fall, after Adam and Eve sinned for the first time. But this would have been a familiar thing. As it's written, it's really easy to see that as we read through Genesis, and it says God comes walking in the cool of the day. Adam and Eve heard the Lord walking in the cool of the day. And so the fact that they heard that and they knew what it was, this happened a lot. This happened regularly, and I think in God's perfect design from the beginning, we were made to slow down and walk with him, in relationship with him, and we find real rest there. Jesus also invites us to work with him. And I've got to be honest, I scratched my head a little bit on this one when I read through this, and I'm still coming to understand this a little bit better, because this idea of work, when I read through this passage, I was like, that seems really counterintuitive to what we're getting at here with rest. Work, rest, those two things don't seem to go in tandem really, really well. But working with Jesus is very different from working alone. And in fact, I would go so far as to say that working with Jesus is very different from working for Jesus. Those two things are so different, because when I work for Jesus, I'm still trying to do the work on my own. And when I work alone, there is a lot of pressure to perform. Man, I have to yield good results. I have to meet others' expectations. I have to meet my own expectations, which are often way higher than anybody else has for me. I have to be the fixer. I have to make sure everything goes the way it's supposed to go. I'm the one who has to get things done when I work alone. And there is no rest in that anywhere in my experience. I just work until the work is done, and oftentimes the work is never done. But on the flip side, when I accept this invitation to work with Jesus, the pressure changes. The pressure is lifted. My results in all of the earthly things that I might be doing, those carry less weight. Because the eternal impact of my relationships and my example and my identity and who God created me to be, those things matter so much more when I work with Jesus. My focus turns to trusting God for the results, not just producing the results. I can only do what I can do, and then I trust God to handle the rest when I'm working with Jesus. I can have peace in knowing that when I'm working with Jesus and in all that I do, the things that matter most will be accomplished. Those things will get done. And those things will yield results that God is honored by, the things that matter. Now, this isn't like a catch-all excuse to do nothing, to not work on things here. God is inviting us to work with him. So we still get to put in the work, but that work is light and it's life-giving. It's not heavy. It's not work that doesn't fit us well. God invites us to work that is light and life-giving. And it's far better to work alongside Jesus than to try to live up to the pressure to perform on my own. So much better to live that way. And thinking about this whole working and resting thing, I kind of had my mind blown a little bit recently in a book that I've been reading on Sabbath. And I read in this book that it said God was still working when he established the Sabbath. And I was, again, confused by this work-rest thing for a minute. But he went on to explain in this book, he said that in the creation story, we read that God worked and God created on days 1 through 6, and then he gets to day 7, and on the 7th day, God rested. But even in his rest, he was still working. That's what threw me. But he was still in the business of creating even in this moment, because by resting on that 7th day, by making the decision to rest, by modeling that for us, by doing that for the first time in the midst of his work, God created the Sabbath. Even though God was resting, he was still creating. That was crazy for me. He was working in the midst of his resting. And that's what God's inviting us to. Working with him in our rest. So when Jesus says, walk with me, work with me, that's the kind of work he's talking about. Work that's life-giving and restful. And as we move forward in the passage, he says something else towards the end. He says, keep company with me. And there's that word with again. I'm so latched onto that in this passage. Keep company with me, and you'll learn to live freely and lightly. And when I got to that last sentence, I really zeroed in on this word, keep. Keep. And what that said to me was that this is a constant, regular rhythm of rest that we're being invited to. And we see Jesus, again, he gives us the example. He says, watch how I do it. We see Jesus engage in solitude constantly throughout the Gospels. It says so many times that Jesus went away to rest. He went away early in the morning and got away from everyone else. He went to pray. There are so many moments where he steps away and just goes to get away with God. It happens at the start of his ministry. It happens when he makes big decisions. It happens in preparation for huge ministry opportunities. It happens as he deals with emotions. It happens as he cares for his soul. It happens before the biggest moment of his life on earth, before he dies for us and becomes the Savior of the world. Jesus took time to get away with God. It's not just a one-time thing. And it's not just when Jesus is feeling depleted. He does this all the time. It's consistently a part of his life. It's part of who Jesus is. Real rest was a priority for Jesus. So it should be a priority for us. We have to make this happen. And it's something that I discovered in my own life recently that I think I'm probably not the only one that struggles with is that I could easily recognize my need for rest. I could say that I needed to rest more, but I wasn't very good at living out having that as a priority. I knew when I got to the point where I was close to the end of my rope and I needed to rest, and I told myself that I know where I'm at, and man, when I get through these next 2 weeks, when I get through this task, when I get through writing this message, when I get through this event that we're putting together, man, I'm going to rest after that. But the work's never finished. After that thing, we moved on to the next thing. I didn't take the moment to stop. I just moved forward because there was something else that needed to get done. And so while I said I needed rest, I didn't know how to make that happen. I struggled with that. And so recently I started scheduling rest to make it a regular thing in my life. I put it on a calendar, because when you put things on a calendar, they become more permanent. You look at them and you're like, oh man, that's a real thing. I put it on my calendar and I started taking rest time, whether I thought I needed it or not. You know, they say if you're thirsty, you're already dehydrated. And so we drink water regularly to prevent getting dehydrated. And I think rest works the same way. We need to rest regularly in order to prevent becoming depleted and burned out. And I think this is why God created Sabbath. This is why God made that a thing, a regular rhythm of rest each week for us to engage in. And this is actually one of the 10 commandments. And I think this is one that we overlook a lot. It's a lot easier to see do not murder and be like, yep, checked that one off the list. But we don't look at the Sabbath too often and are like, that's something that I need to keep. But God created that, and he made it a commandment. Sabbath is important. But it's also it's not just a rule for us to follow either, so I don't want us to think that in this moment. Okay, it's one of the 10 commandments, I better just do it. That's not what I want us to see here. There's actually a story in the Gospels, and in Matthew, it follows this passage that we read that was on the screen. It's the chapter immediately after where Jesus and his disciples, they're walking through a field on the Sabbath, and they start picking grain off the wheat that's growing there and eating it. And in this day and age, the religious leaders had made such a rule thing out of the Sabbath that would have been considered work. And so, of course, they're like, Jesus, why are you and your disciples disobeying the Sabbath? Why are you breaking the law on the Sabbath? And I really love his response to this. And I love the account in Mark that he writes where when Jesus is asked about this, he kind of just flips that on its head, and he kind of lets us know how backwards that is, to think that this is just a rule for us to follow. In Mark 2:27 and 28, Jesus says, "The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. So the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath." He tells us in this moment, the Sabbath is God's gift to us. It's established by God for our good. It's for us. It's not just a rule to follow in order to show our faithfulness. It's so much more than that. We can be at our best when we live in a rhythm for the Sabbath, when that's part of who we regularly are. In fact, I think that we can catch ourselves in a sin of pride at times to know about the Sabbath and know that that's something that God has given us and then deliberately not live in that. That's prideful. And that convicted me a lot when I was thinking about this, that God created this regular rhythm of rest for my good. So for me to choose not to live in that kind of just puts on display this deeper seated problem that maybe I think I know better than God does. To say that I don't need that, or I'm not going to engage in that rest that you've set up for me. Because I believe God has my best at heart. And so he created this rhythm of rest for us to follow. So we should prioritize it. We should prioritize our rest and put it on our schedule. Make it happen. Make it happen for your good and for God's glory. And I know as we talk about this, that there are plenty of things that get in the way of this happening, that get in the way of us making rest a priority. And I just want to touch on a couple of those, because I know we're probably already starting to think about some of those things. And the first objection to rest is that I'm too busy. I'm so busy. There are too many things that I need to get done. And there always seem to be more things to do than there is time to do them in. There's not time. I don't know how to make this happen. And I get stressed out by this. I still do. That's happened to me this semester, where I think, man, there's so many things to do, and I don't know if I have enough time to get them all done. I certainly don't know if I have time to put rest in the middle of all that. But I've seen something in my experience that even when I take the time out to rest, the work still gets done. It still happens. And I know that's harder to see on the front end, when maybe I'm standing there looking at the mountain of things that need to get done. But when I try to climb the whole thing at once, I may get there, but when I get down to the other side, man, I'm exhausted. And even if there is a small moment of rest that I may get to enjoy, I don't enjoy it because I'm so depleted from doing all of that at once and never resting along the way. I don't get to enjoy that moment that might be there before I get to the next mountain that I've got to climb again. But when I rest along the way, the mountain still gets climbed. The mountain is still conquered. And the process is way, way better for me. I also think we have a tendency at times to bring this busyness upon ourselves. How many of us in the room are procrastinators? Be honest, it's okay, because you're my people, I'm with you. It's not a great thing, but I want to share with us, here's the problem with procrastination in this context, right? Even if I'm not working on it now, and I think that's nice, it is still looming in the distance, right? And I'm letting the busy build up in my life when I'm just waiting until the last minute. It's all going to get piled up eventually. And if we're honest, if we're really honest with ourselves, when we procrastinate, when we choose that, it's not because we're invested in something better. It's not because I made a conscious decision to do something more meaningful. That's different. That's not procrastinating. When we're procrastinating, we just do something mindless and meaningless to take our minds off the impending doom that we're bringing upon ourselves later. Is that true? In all reality, if we really think about it, we might not have been nearly as busy as we've made ourselves. We've made life that way, and now we can't fulfill our priorities the way we want to. And maybe that's tough for us to hear a little bit. It's tough to take in, but some of us need to take a hard look at whether we're creating the problem of busyness in our lives. Are we making that happen? The second enemy of rest is pride, which I think shows up in a couple of ways. The first is that we tell ourselves that rest isn't something that we need. And I know I mentioned this already, but man, we tell ourselves that we're the driven ones. We're the ones that will accomplish more than everyone else. We don't need to rest. We can press on, right? Rest is bad. It takes away from my productivity. I don't need to step away from what I'm doing. If I just keep it on, I can get even more done. And again, I want to tell us, God doesn't ask us to get more done. God asks us to rest so that the things that we do can be more fruitful for his kingdom and for our joy. God invites us into that. I think another thing that goes with pride is that we have this tendency sometimes to overestimate our importance in things. I think in many of the things we're involved in, I've caught myself in this before, we believe that it's up to us to make everything happen. Man, if I weren't there, if I stepped away, the whole thing would just come crashing down. Nothing would get done if I was not part of this. In reality, there's very little, and take this in, there's very little that each of us do that couldn't be accomplished by someone else if we had to step away. There's very little that I do that somebody else couldn't step in and make happen if I couldn't do it. So don't perceive yourself as too important to embrace the gift of rest that God provides. You're not. I'm not. And I think that's also linked to this last one, this last enemy of our rest, which is our own expectation for success. I think so many of us feel that we have to perform to a certain standard. And it's not bad to have standards. But I do think it is bad to let those standards get in the way of God's best for you. And I'll just tell you that you getting straight A's just for the sake of getting straight A's is not going to benefit the kingdom. And I'm not telling you not to try or not to give your best. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am telling you is that stressing about the grade and being focused solely on fulfilling that expectation causes you to miss out on so much that God could be doing around you or in you or through you. And this doesn't just have to be about our grades either. It can be so many number of things that we are involved in where we feel the need to meet a certain expectation. God desires so much more than that. So I want us to not let our busyness or our pride or worldly success get in the way of something wonderful that God has invited us into. So let's make rest a priority. Keep company with God by getting away with him, by walking with him, slowing down, by working with him on a regular basis. And I actually want to help us put that into practice tonight a little bit. So I want to kind of guide us through a practice in stillness tonight. And so stay with me. The steps that we're going to work through tonight are actually going to be on the app too, so that later you can engage in this practice again sometime this week or later on. But the first thing I want you to do is find some space. And so I want us to do this quick so that we can kind of keep things moving. But don't sit right next to somebody. Spread out throughout the room real quick. Take some time to do that. When you get there, we're gonna keep moving. So have some space. All right. And I want you to go ahead and prepare somewhere to take notes through this time if that's something that you do. So if it's an app, go ahead, pull that out. You can do that on our app as well. I'm really not trying to pitch our app, but it's totally fine. Prepare somewhere to take notes. And if it is an app on your phone, get that set up and then put your phone in airplane mode because I don't want you to get distracted. Please, seriously, do it. But you can use this to just kind of quickly jot down any notes that you feel you need to as we just spend some time in rest with God right now. And you can come back to these things later. These don't have to be long, drawn-out notes. It's just quick things. And I'm going to go ahead and kind of invite us to begin to enter this time. So let's go ahead and take another deep breath together. And have our eyes closed. And I'd love for you to take a posture with your hands open in front of you. And right now, go ahead and take some time to pray where you're at and just offer this time to God. I know it's just a moment, but ask to be filled with His Spirit, to be filled with His encouragement and His refreshment, and tell Him that you're ready to listen if He desires to speak to you in this time. Picture yourself approaching His feet as He sits on the throne, and you're preparing to hear from Him like a child listening to a story. That's how you come before Him. Take a moment and just offer this time to Him. After you do that, begin to quiet your mind. And this might be the more difficult thing that we do, but turn off your own mental chatter that goes on in your head. I know it's not easy, and it's okay to wander. Just bring yourself back and focus on quieting your mind again. But we want to use this time to listen. This works in tandem with just quieting our minds. Zero in on listening to the silence around you. Engage the white noise instead of the narrative of your mind. Focus in on your breathing rhythm. Zero in on that. We're stilling our minds so that if God speaks to us, we're prepared to hear it. And during this time, God may speak through a thought that comes out of nowhere in your own voice. He may speak in an image that comes into your mind or an idea, and we can recognize these things from God if they line up with who we know Him to be. So spend this time quieting your mind, listening for Him, just soaking up His refreshment for you as you just rest. And I encourage you, even if the time feels long or if it feels a little awkward, to stay engaged or to re-engage if you need to throughout this time. just take some time to rest and quiet yourself with Him, and I'll bring us back here in just a few minutes. Let's just go ahead and take one more deep breath together. Go ahead and open your eyes. Make any quick notes that you feel like you need to. And you can reflect on those in your own time later. For some of us, that might have felt like forever. For some of us, it felt like it just went like that, I'm sure. But I want to encourage you and challenge you to schedule a time to just spend with God, intentionally resting again, whether it looks exactly like this or it looks a little different, that's okay. But that's so good to just sit and be still in the presence of God. I remember the first time I did this, and it was like, why don't just try to be still for about 5 minutes. And I was in a place where I was tired, and I knew it, and I was depleted, and I got to this moment, and I made it maybe 2 minutes, and I was just crying because I needed this moment of stillness to just be with God, and I hadn't done that. And so this is such a good thing to just sit and rest with God. I felt so much better leaving after those 2-3 minutes because I had just been in his presence. And he spoke so much to me in that moment, that through that silence, and it was so encouraging to me to be in his presence. I want to encourage you to engage in that as well. So schedule a time to spend with God, intentionally resting again. Go ahead and begin to think of a place where you can be uninterrupted, a time that you can enter into his rest, and write that down. Write that down and make that a priority this week. Like, seriously, go ahead, do it now. That's fine. Like, write down a time. If you need to do it afterwards, that's okay too. But sometime throughout this week, or even throughout the end of tonight here, share that with someone else that you're close with so that you're more likely to do it. So that you have some accountability in your life for this as well. Rest is so important. It's an amazing thing that God invites us into, and we just don't live in it all the time. So establish that in your life. Make it a priority. Make it a regular part of what you do and who you are. I want to give us some time to just process a little bit in family groups. There's a few questions that are going to be up on the screen. We're going to have just a few minutes to do that. So if you would, just break into some small groups. Doesn't have to be an exact number. Just break into some small groups together and maybe process these few questions that are up here on the screen. Take a few minutes to do that. Share your plan of rest for this week with each other. And then we'll wrap up together here in just a few minutes. So take a few minutes to process together.
Hey, want to get your attention. We're going to wrap up here. And a couple things, just a handful of things as we wrap up together. One, I wanted to recognize those that ran for student government. I had gotten word that Lance was nominated. Way to go, Lance. McKenna and Connor Campbell as well, all to an office for student government, which was pretty sweet. If you weren't at Vision Casting and you want to be involved in ministry next year, meaning you want to be a part of ministry team, you want to be a part of leading, stop by the office. We got a yellow ministry interest card that we want you to fill out and just leave there on the desk. That would be awesome. Let's see. Also, our ministry expansion campaign, which our goal was $165,000, we're working towards that. Here together, we raised around $2,900 towards that goal, which was phenomenal. At our banquet, we raised around $44,000, and since then, we have been up to and pledged about $99,000 to almost $100,000 raised towards our $165,000. So praise God for that. We're really excited about that and just honor God and just continue to pray for God to move and raise those funds. This week, it's the last hot dogs, it's the last pancakes. And so come on out and have your Jesus dogs and your Jesus pancakes and invite your friends and have a good time. I mean, we're excited to wrap up the year in this way. But we're not wrapping up the year because actually Trine has still allowed us, so we're not allowed to have events next week. They said yes to worship here. So we'll be back here for this time, and we'll be recognizing our seniors. And kind of a cool thing, we weren't able to do it in the full extent that we normally do last year, but we're going to get back to inducting our seniors into our alumni association. So pretty sweet. You don't want to miss it. If you haven't seen it, you want to be here next week. So that's everything here. Thanks for being here and being a part of our worship service tonight. We've got snacks in the back. Hang out with one another, enjoy one another, and see you at Hot Dogs, Pancakes or next week.